By August, plenty of gardens are running out of gas. The daylilies are winding down, the early perennials are done, and anything that looked fresh and full in June may be looking a little crispy around the edges. But late summer does not have to mean a tired, half-empty garden. Pick the right plants, and August and September can be when your yard really comes alive, with bold color, clouds of butterflies, and flowers that keep going right up to frost. Today, I'm sharing 11 late-season bloomers that earn their keep. I'll give you the USDA zones, a few varieties that are actually worth hunting down, and the one-card trick that helps each plant look its best. And stick around for the last one, because it gets blamed for fall allergies all the time, even though the real troublemaker is usually blooming right beside it. One quick note before we dig in. USDA hardiness zones tell you how much winter cold a perennial can take. They do not tell you how well it handles summer heat and humidity. Bloom time can also slide by a few weeks, depending on where you live. A plant peaking in August in Minnesota may bloom earlier in Georgia or later in a cool mountain garden. First up, the flower that gives you a ridiculous amount of color for the price of a packet of seeds: zinnias. Zinnias are warm season annuals, so there is no perennial hardiness zone to worry about. You can grow them just about anywhere in the United States, between the last spring frost and the first fall frost. And honestly, late summer is when a healthy zinnia patch usually hits its stride.
The plants are filled out, the stems are long, and the more flowers you cut, the more they branch and bloom. For a cutting garden, Benari's giant eye is hard to beat. The blooms are big, bold, and almost dahlia-like, with sturdy stems that hold up well in a vase. The Oklahoma series gives you smaller flowers, but loads of usable stems, which makes it a favorite with cut flower growers. If you garden where summers are hot, humid, and basically one long invitation to powdery mildew, look at the Profusion series. It is compact too, and much less likely to turn into a mildewed mess by August. Give zinnias full sun, water at the base instead of hosing down the foliage, and keep cutting. This is not a plant you need to baby, but you cannot let it sit there making seed and expect it to bloom its head off. Snip off tired flowers regularly. If you keep up with the deadheading, zinnias will keep cranking out color until frost shuts the whole thing down. Next is tall garden phlox, one of those old-school perennials that can perfume an ancient garden bed. Phlox paniculata is generally hardy in zones 4 to 8, and the right mix of varieties can keep blooming from midsummer well into September. Jana is a standout if you want clouds of lavender pink flowers, tons of butterfly traffic, and better than average powdery mildew resistance. David is the classic white phlox, clean, bright, fragrant, and especially good in a moon garden or anywhere you sit in the evening. Instead of planting 10 of the same phlox, mix an earlier and a later bloomer. That simple trick stretches the season without asking any one plant to flower forever. Phlox likes sun, but a little afternoon shade can be a lifesaver in the deep south. Give it decent airflow, soil that drains well but does not stay bone dry, and water down at the roots. Pack the stems too tightly, soak the leaves in the evening, or let the plant dry out every other week, and mildew will show up fast. Once the main flower heads fade, cut them back to a strong set of side shoots. Those side buds can give you a nice second round instead of one big show followed by nothing. For dependable gold color, I think it is hard to top black-eyed Susan. Rudbeckia flugida is hardy in zones 3 through 9, and once it settles in, it is a real workhorse. Heat, a dry spell, average soil, it shrugs off conditions that make fushier perennials look downright miserable. Goldshirm is the classic for a reason, with golden petals around dark brown combs. Little Gold Star gives you the same look on a shorter, tidier plant that fits near the front of a bed. Early bird gold is worth a look if you want the show to get started a little sooner. Give Rudbeckia plenty of sun if you want sturdy stems and lots of flowers. Deadhead through the main bloom season to keep the planting looking sharp, but do not clean up every last seed head in fall. Goldfinches may pick at the seeds, and those dark cones add some much-needed structure after the garden goes dormant. A garden sheaf to the ground in October does not leave much for the birds, or much to look at in winter.
If you want those same warm, late summer colors, but with a little more attitude, grow helenium. You will often see it labeled sneezeweed which sounds like a terrible sales pitch. The plant is not a major producer of wind-blown allergy pollen. The name comes from an old practice of using the powdered plant to induce sneezing, not because the flowers are notorious allergy triggers. Helenia autumnum and its garden hybrids are generally hardy in zones 3 through 8. The flowers come in glowing shades of yellow, copper, burnt orange, and brick red, the exact colors that make a late summer bed look like it is already leaning into fall. Mardi Gras is a sturdy 2 to 3 foot variety with a mix of orange, yellow, and red. Marichi salsa stays closer to 20 inches, so it will not swallow a smaller bed. Moorheim Beauty is a gorgeous older red bronze variety, but it can get tall and may need a little help staying upright. Helenium is not as drought tolerant as Rudbeckia. It likes full sun and consistent moisture, and if the soil keeps going bone dry, the plant will let you know. If yours gets tall, leggy, and flops all over its neighbors, pinch it back in late spring while it still has plenty of time to branch and set buds. And keep deadheading. Some varieties will throw another flush instead of calling it quits after the first round. Now for the sleeper HIT on this list, hostas. Most gardeners grow them for the foliage, and plenty of hostas bloom earlier in summer. But Hosta plantaginea and the fragrant varieties in its family are a different story.
Often called August lilies, they send up large, white, trumpet-shaped flowers in late summer, sometimes carrying the show into September. The best part is the fragrance. The flowers tend to open later in the day, and on a warm evening, they can scent the whole area around a porch, walkway, or shaded patio. Hosta plantaginea is generally hardy in zones 3 through 9. Royal Standard is probably the easiest fragrant variety to find. Aphrodite has large double white flowers when it is happy, and honeybells is another good fragrant option. Give these hostas rich soil that holds some moisture but does not stay soggy. Morning sun or bright filtered light is ideal, especially in warmer zones where harsh afternoon sun can scorch the leaves. And do not tuck a fragrant hosta into some forgotten back corner. Put it where you walk past in the evening. Otherwise, you are wasting half the reason to grow it. For flowers that look delicate but are tougher than they appear, 3 Japanese anemones, also called windflowers. They are generally hardy in zones 4 through 8, and their pink or white blooms dance on tall, wiry stems from late summer into fall. Honorine Jobert is the classic white variety, usually reaching 3 to 4 feet. September Charm has soft silvery pink flowers, and Queen Charlotte is a little shorter with semi-double pink blooms. All 3 look especially good where they can weave through bolder, heavier plants without making the bed feel crowded. Japanese anemones like evenly moist, well-drained soil. In the north, they can take quite a bit of sun. In hot summer areas, give them afternoon shade so they do not freeze. Here's the part garden centers do not always mention. A new plant may sit there looking polite and well-behaved for a year or two, then suddenly start roaming. Japanese anemones spread by underground rhizomes. Give them elbow room, and do not plant them next to something small and delicate that cannot compete. If you need height and want to turn the garden into a butterfly hangout, Joe-Pye weed earns its spot. Coastal plain Joe-Pye weed, Eutrochium dabium, is hardy in zones 3 through 9 and carries big domes of dusty pink to mauve flowers from summer into early fall. When it is in full bloom, the flower heads can be so covered with butterflies that the whole plant seems to move. The straight species can grow 3 to 6 feet tall, so this is not something to squeeze along the front walk. Put it at the back of a bed, along a fence, or in a rain garden where it has room to be big. Little Joe is the more garden-friendly choice if you want the same general look without a 6-foot wall of foliage. Just remember that little is relative. It is still a substantial perennial. Joe-Pye weed takes full sun to part shade and loves soil that stays on the moist side. If you have a low spot that is too wet for sedum and too sunny for many shade plants, this one can turn an awkward patch into a pollinator magnet. On the other end of the moisture scale, we have autumn joy stonecrop, still called sedum by just about every gardener and garden center in America. It is generally hardy in zones 3 through 9 and is one of the easiest ways to keep a hot, dry bed looking good late in the season.
The flower heads start out green, turn rosy pink in late summer, and deepen into rust and copper as fall moves in. It's almost like getting 3 different plants without changing a thing. Give autumn joy good drainage and at least 6 hours of sun. Do not spoil it with rich soil and loads of fertilizer. Too much water and nitrogen make the stems soft, and then the whole clump flops open right when the flower heads get heavy. This is one plant that looks better when you grow it lean. If yours always splits down the middle, cut it back by about 1/3 in late spring. And leave the dry flower heads standing over winter. They catch frost beautifully and keep the bed from looking completely flat. Of course, we have to talk about mums. They are everywhere in the United States as soon as pumpkin season starts. But not every perfect little ball of flowers sitting outside a grocery store is going to come back next year. If you want a true perennial, look for hardy garden mums and get them into the ground early enough to build roots. Many garden mums are reliable in zones 5 through 9. The Mammoth series was bred to handle colder winters, with varieties that can grow into zone 3. Mammoth dark pink daisy can begin blooming before September in colder regions, and Mammoth white daisy is another solid choice. In milder climates, Corin and Rubellum type mums, such as Mari Stoker and Paris Peach, have a looser, more natural shape that fits into a perennial bed instead of screaming temporary fall porch pot. Mums want full sun and soil that drains well.
Pinch the growing tips in late spring and early summer so the plants branch instead of turning into a few tall sticks. A lot of American gardeners use the 4th of July as the cutoff. After that, put the pruners down or you risk snipping off the buds you were waiting for. And if you want mums to survive winter, plant them in spring. A root-bound mum dropped into cold ground in October is fighting an uphill battle. As the days start getting shorter, New England asters step in. If you know them as Michaelmas daisies or simply September flowers, these are the classic purple and pink daisies that light up the late garden. The American native New England aster, Symphyotrichum nova Anglia, is generally hardy in zones 4 through 8 and can flower from August into October. The straight species can hit 6 feet, but you do not have to turn your flower bed into an aster jungle. Purple dome stays much shorter and forms a mound covered in deep purple blooms. September Robbie gives you a rich pink red, while Alma Pashka is famous for that almost electric rose-pink color. Plant New England asters in full sun and average to moist, well-drained soil. Tall varieties can get leggy and flop, so pinch them back once or twice in late spring, then leave them alone by early summer so they can set buds. Give them breathing room, too. Jam them shoulder to shoulder, and powdery mildew may move in before the flowers even open. Last up is goldenrod, the innocent bystander of fall allergy season. Every year, people see those bright yellow flowers and blame them for hay fever.
But goldenrod pollen is heavy and sticky, so insects carry most of it. Ragweed blooms at the same time, makes huge amounts of airborne pollen, and gets away with the cream because its green flowers are hardly noticed. For a garden bed, look for fireworks goldenrod. This selection of rough goldenrod is hardy in zones 4 through 8 and grows in a fairly well-behaved clump instead of taking over the whole yard. In late summer and September, its long, arching flower sprays look like yellow sparks shooting across the top of the plant. Fireworks is great with purple asters, dark pink sedum, and mauve Joe-Pye weed. It wants full sun, handles clay better than many perennials, and likes soil that is reasonably moist but drains well. It is also a late-season buffet for bees, butterflies, and all kinds of beneficial insects. When cleanup time comes, resist the urge to cut every stem down to the dirt. Leaving some stems standing through winter gives the garden structure. Then, in spring, cut a portion of hollow or pithy stems back to about 12 to 24 inches and leave them in place. Those exposed stems can provide nesting sites for native bees. The trick to a great August and September garden is not finding one miracle plant that blooms non-stop for 3 months. It is building a relay team. Zinnias and phlox carry the color out of summer. Rudbeckia and helenium bring the heat. Fragrant hostas and Japanese anemones light up park shade. Then Joe-Pye weed, sedum, mums, asters, and goldenrod take the garden across the finish line.
while feeding late-season pollinators.
Match the plant to your sun, soil moisture, and USDA zone. Then combine at least 3 with slightly different bloom windows. When one starts to fade, the next is already gearing up. So which of these is putting on a show in your garden right now? And which one just landed on your must-grow list?